Mm. Chew away.
I think those would have done pretty well in the Great British Baking Show.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'll give them to the students now. Does anyone want more of a part to give to the students?
Whoa.
Mr. Franson, we have a few Danville Bear macarons and
All right, folks, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Danville Board of Directors, and we're all in the room. We'll go around the room and introduce ourselves just to say hello. I'm Clayton Carter, the board chair. I'll speak first.
David Holt, vice chair.
Molly Gleason, clerk. Melissa Conley, board member.
Tim Sanborn, board member.
Suzanne Podheiser, cooking teacher.
Mark Tucker, superintendent.
Sarah Welch, elementary principal. Natalie Conley, secondary.
That's a good thing as well. So we have some presentations coming up. So before I move on to the presentations, does anybody have any additions or changes to the tonight's agenda? No. Great. There's none. I'm going to move on. We have two presentations tonight. The first one is from the culinary department.
Do you want to swap them so the students don't have to be here as long?
They seem like patient people.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm the culinary department. How loudly do I have to speak, or can I just speak in a normal tone of voice to the table? Okay.
Speak to the table. Yeah, you're here at a meeting of us. And everybody else is spectating the meeting of us.
Perfect. So yeah, hiring me was Mr. Schilling's brainchild last year, and it happened partway through the school year. And since Mr. Schilling is not here anymore, I thought it would be useful for me to come introduce myself, tell you what we're doing in the cooking classes, and maybe field any questions you have. So yeah, basically there are kind of two traditional models for cooking classes in schools. There's the home ec model, which focuses on kind of thrifty home cooking and is very kind of recipe oriented and kind of just producing things and then moving on. And then there's the tech ed model, which is focused around preparing students to potentially go to culinary school or go right into the chefing world. And what I'm trying to do is neither of those things. And I thought that I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. What I'm trying to do is to teach students to problem solve around cooking, to teach them to use teamwork, to teach them creativity, and to help them make connections between the foods that you buy and cook and kind of broader things in the community. So if you buy vegetables from McDonald's farm stand and you know the farmers there, that kind of strengthens the community. And also kind of networking them with potential jobs and things of that nature. So it's more of a kind of grassroots, community-oriented cooking program that's less about making perfect cookies and more about learning what to do when you fail, learning what to do with what's in your pantry, figuring out how to use, what the farms have in the winter and things of that nature. So yeah, it's just a little bit different than what I think people are used to. And another thing that I'm working towards, hopefully over time, I know we lost a lot of ninth graders this year to other schools, and I'm hoping that over time we can develop a program that kind of marries cooking and other subject areas in a way that creates additional paths to graduation, and also in collaboration with Nick and Zach in the shop and in the outdoor classes to kind of give students kind of rigorous classes that are also hands-on and fun and lead to jobs down the road. So one example of that I'm trying to build is a food entrepreneurship class that could potentially be taken as a math credit. So in that class, in my mind, a student would design a food-related business like, say, sorry, lost my train of thought there, a food truck. So they say, okay, I'm going to design a food truck, and each group is making their own concept for a food truck. So they have to make a business plan, they have to hire staff, they have to raise capital, they have to spend money, and then they have to design a menu and price it appropriately so that their business will thrive. And that's a way of getting students to do really functional everyday math, but through something that's fun, like, you know, making a burger, making lemonade, whatever it is that they're excited about, they can focus on. And then because we actually have a real live food truck that Nick and Zach's classes made last year, we can have them test their concepts for the whole school or for the community and kind of make it a little bit of a kind of public facing thing. So these are the kinds of things we're trying to do in our classes. Vermont's three largest industries are agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism, and food is kind of deeply intertwined with all three of those things. And so, you know, the more that students know about how food works, how the food system works, the more likely it is that we can kind of keep them in Vermont and send them into those industries and have them be really effective and have good jobs, and also know how to think for themselves when they get home from work. So I'm going to back up a little bit and just tell you a little about who I am. I was born in New York City, but we moved to Perry Pond Road when I was 5 years old. So I went to North Danville Elementary School, which was still there back in 1983 when we moved here. And then we ended up in St. Johnsbury for a few years. So I went to the St. Johnsbury Middle School in Arlington there, not in that order. We moved away so that my parents could go to graduate school, and my mom got an MEd and ended up working in curriculum at the state of Vermont for a while. And my dad is a speech pathologist and is still working in schools. So I kind of come from this background that's kind of deeply intertwined with education. I was hearing terms thrown around at the dinner table about, you know, pedagogy and curricula, and, different strategies for teaching and learning. And so that's kind of my background. And I originally went to school to be a teacher, but my love of food was so strong that I ended up designing my own degree in interdisciplinary food studies at the University of Vermont. So I took classes in a bunch of different disciplines, and I made them all about food. So in my writing classes, I wrote about food. In my philosophy classes, I wrote about food ethics. I did advertising and marketing classes and looked at how food is marketed to young people. So all kinds of, you know, any subject you can imagine, I probably made it about food. After that, I was the food editor of 7 Days newspaper. So I had 4 years going around the state, interviewing farmers, chefs, food manufacturers, and learning about their jobs, meeting them, creating this kind of broad network that I hope to use to help our students find jobs. I owned my own restaurant for 5 years. It was a 22-seat restaurant in Montpelier. So I was the chef and the front of house person and the dishwasher, and so basically played all the roles there. And I've also owned a catering company, multiple catering companies, run a few cafes, and owned a goose farm. We raised geese for meat and sold them to restaurants and to consumers. So I've kind of been in a variety of different sectors in the Vermont food industry and seen how they connect, and hopefully, you know, bringing that to the table can be really useful for our students here. So let's try to see what I missed. Currently, my partner and I kind of semi-homestead. We don't completely homestead, but we grow most of our own vegetables. We're in a pig cooperative, so we raise pigs with my sister and her partner and help to process them and butcher them. We grow mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms and lion's mane mushrooms, and we sugar. So we kind of have some of those traditional background skills as well. And I think it's really important to kind of give a lot of credence to hunting and fishing and preserving and gardening, and build all of those things into the cooking program as well, because self-sufficiency is really important to our community and to us, and to teach that as well as kind of the academic side and the kind of interlinking of all the concepts around how food relates to the economy and to kind of everything else in the world is foundational to what I'm trying to do. So we have this like round level, like be self-sufficient thing, and then we have this like make ties between cooking and community and what people in India eat and, you know, kind of the global picture. And so just a few things that we do in class, or that we have done in class. We have weekly cooking competitions. So the students choose what they're going to make based on parameters I give them. So it might be make a meal that costs less than $15, or use all the things we already have in the classroom and decide what we're going to do, or make something that we can do with Thanksgiving leftovers. They craft their own recipes, I buy them their ingredients, and then they compete, and they're judged on their creativity, their hard work, how well they clean the classroom after. You have to judge them when they want to. And just how well food is made as well. So we do that. They cooked for prom last year. They cooked for open house this year and for Fright Night. So they get to be involved in these community events that the school puts on, and also cook for their peers. I always encourage them to share whatever they've made. Maria Norton, our custodian, came in and showed the students how to make homemade tortillas and tamales. She's from Mexico, so these are foods that she grew up making. We went to the Inn at Brooklyn. I don't know if all of you know the Inn at Brooklyn, but it's a Darling property on Darling Hill. And we got a tour. Usually people don't get tours, but they told us that the railway in Lindenville was actually built so that they could send meat and milk from the Darling property to a hotel they owned in New York. And that's the reason that Lindenville has a railroad. The kids were just totally amazed by this property. It had one of the first central vacuums in the country, probably in the world. So yeah, they were really in awe. They got to eat, they get to pick off a menu and eat a 3-course lunch, and the inn did this for free because they're hoping that we can eventually send them an intern or two. So we did the math on the bus on the way home, and it would have been about $1,000 meal if we paid normal restaurant prices, and they did that for us because they wanted to connect with the students. And so the reason the students are making these macarons now is because we're having a thank you lunch, and we're inviting the folks from the Inn at Brooklyn to the school, and they're going to counter the students for cooking for them. So they've been practicing their recipes all week to try to dial them in before they're cooking for a real chef. So yeah, that's some stuff we've been doing. I brought, we do a couple things. I asked them to write about what they like about cooking class. So I like having a cooking class so I will survive my adulthood, and so I can try new stuff. One student said they learned how to read recipes in class. They like making things from scratch. It's helpful in life. One student really liked learning lots of stuff about herbs and having the freedom to make things the way that you want to. That's a 8th grader or 7th grader. I love culinary. So yeah, I'll pass these around after, you can just check them out. Here's my resume. Just in case you're like, oh, I wish our cooking teacher could do this. You could be like, oh, she could, or she totally couldn't.
So then can you send me, like, if you want it in the minutes, do you want to send me an electronic version of everything?
I have all the pictures of these too, so I can send you the photos of those and the resume. And then I brought some pictures that Mark is going to put up for you. So that's a beef stew my students made last year in one of their cooking competitions. Some cupcakes that we made for prom, decorated with flowers from my garden. This was during summer school. I had all the different grades take crackers and fruits and flowers and vegetables and arrange them. So that's a little face. I don't know if you can tell from there, but that was like a 2nd grader, I think. Proud of pizza. And everything's homemade in the class. So, we're using flour and baking soda, and they're learning to measure and all of those kinds of important skills. So another cupcake. That was a cobbler. I learned how to make cobblers and crisps. Some dumplings. Oh, and a student whose family owns a restaurant in town showed his fellow students how to make dumplings because he had made them more times than I had. So yeah, some more dumplings, different shapes, a crumb cake, a toffee cake. The green tables are really an excellent background.
Right.
That was a competition dish from this year. They were working on their plating there.
Nice.
Didn't get to see the cakes for very long, but that's okay. So those are the cookies that they made for open house. Yeah, some cupcakes and Landon and some students had made a heart-shaped layer cake that was in a previous picture. Oh, so this student comes in during his lunch and uses my pasta roller and just makes himself a plate of fresh pasta to eat, just because he wants to. He's not in my class. He's a 9th grader and he knew how to make fresh pasta when he walked in the door. Cool. More cupcakes. Those were for Fright Night.
Right.
A little owl enjoying a cookie. These students made farfalle from scratch. That's the menu from the Inn at Berkman. It will be in the be envious of the students. That's it.
Oh my goodness.
Mark can see.
I can see.
So this was all of them in the playground. Oh, we fed Martha too. Yeah, she got her meal.
Yeah.
This student made creme brulee, banana foster creme brulee, which was his own invention, and he got to use the blowtorch. He was very excited. This is a mocktail, don't worry, that the students made for a competition. They thought there's sugar rim and cranberry garnish. And that was their whole presentation with a loaf of bread stuffed with fresh mozzarella cheese.
Mm.
Some very excited pancake makers. I think some of them are in this room right now.
They were like.
And look at those faces, look at those expressions. These were the guys who asked to make the pancakes, and the shorter one, he was like, "These are gourmet. I would pay for these in a restaurant." So I think that might be the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm probably going to expound.
Before you leave, does anybody have any questions?
Oh yeah, questions. Do you have any questions?
Could board members come be judges?
Oh yes,
I was at the Fright Night. I judged chili.
you did judge the chili competition.
Because I know Suzanne's number. I would recommend if you want to get on the list, you know Suzanne's number. That's just
I was like, who can judge this chili? Oh, great. So yes, if you're interested in being a judge for one of our classroom competitions, they're usually on Thursdays, and send me an email. Any other questions about the programming or the thoughts behind it?
This is 7 to 12, right?
Yes. Yep. I have 7th, 8th discrete classes, and then a high school class that's elective. But I'm also hoping to add a couple classes next year. That would be a little bit of the academic food combos. So I'm working on some ideas for this.
I don't know if there's a
Very good.
for food for town meeting, but just the thought might be nice. So,
It's too far.
We are picking for
But I think that's not my department.
maple.
That's not gonna be my department. I'm on that committee. I don't think I'm that part of it.
Is the library going to do anything?
The Maple Association. Yeah. Yeah.
They're gonna pick their meal.
Oh, yeah.
In January.
January. Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
Yeah, have a good evening. Thank you.
That was our first presentation. Our second presentation is going to be some BCAT students. And are you ladies going to introduce yourselves and go, or do you need me to ask these gentlemen to start and tell us who you are? How do you want that to go?
We have an introduction.
yeah.
You guys are it?
Yeah.
All right. So if you would, I forgot one first name and one last name. So go around and just introduce yourself so I can get it all written down.
I'm Sloan Morrison from OBS. I'm Lauren Dawkinson from OBS. I'm from OBS. Lindsay Lasley, part of. I'm Riley Barrett, part of BCAT. I'm Alicia, part of BCAT. I'm David Faulkner. I'm Millie Webstrom, part of BCAT.
All right. I have a question about BCAT. I know OBX. Tell me what BCAT stands for.
It's basically just a middle school. I'm sorry. It's Vermont Kids Against Tobacco.
Vermont Kids Against Tobacco. And then OBS is Our Voices Exposed. Our Voices Exposed.
And it's the same program as high school.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Please go on.
We're here today to talk to you about funding for the Takers for Adults.
We got people on the mothers on the video.
So we're here to talk about vape detectors.
Can you all kind of slide forward a little bit so we can get you into the picture?
I'm in the camera.
They're all on. Can't hear. I'm worried that people can't hear them on. You're speaking to an audience besides this stuff. Thank you, Kendall. Go.
As with most schools in the country, Danville is experiencing a serious problem with vape. Each of us would like to present you with a reason why we're requesting.
Hello, Danville School Board. I'm Riley Barra. I'm one member of VCAT, that stands for Vermont Kids Against Tobacco. We are the middle school version of OBX.
Our first reason for vape detectors?
The first reason for getting vape detectors is some people are not able to go to the bathroom in between classes because there are groups of people in each stall. In a lot of instances, more than one person in a stall. Another reason is some people may be scared and uncomfortable to go to the bathroom because people are vaping in there.
And then another reason is it's been proven that people experience a catalyst from breathing in the chemicals, even people who aren't.
Another reason is you will be able to identify people who may need help with addiction.
One of the most important reasons is because of people.
Not only is it illegal, but vaping is a really bad way to represent our school.
Vaping can also lead to the use of other or more extreme drugs.
And hopefully it would, like the vape detectors would give a good deterrent for the bad behavior.
And then our last reason is that it gives the administration another source to identify and deal with the situation. And that's our reason.
Yeah.
Questions?
I'll open the questions to the board. Board members have any questions?
Have you heard anything about the success of vape detectors? If they're being effective? Pierce has a response to that.
I'm Mr. Pierce. Morris, we are facilitators, advisors of OBX and VCAST. Our hope was to have an actual cost effect for you, but we met with Ms. Conway 2 weeks ago, and we decided that we need to research more of other schools, what is successful, what is not successful in other schools. Also, what grants might be available to help purchase vape detectors. Because vape detectors run anywhere between $500 and $700 a piece. That's not including, you could get yearly charged, you could get charged every time message is sent through a cell phone that someone's vaping in the bathroom. So there's a lot of more investigating going on. But we would like approval from you guys to be able to move forward, to be able to do that investigating. I know a couple of years ago, you did approve some funding for vape detectors. They were never purchased at that time. So we're kind of back again, making that request.
How many bathrooms would you need to cover?
That's another investigating that we have to do. What we need to cover for the school, how many vape detectors per bathroom for the square footage, those two things that we have. Because some vape detectors are smaller square footage, and the other ones more.
Other additional questions? So, am I to understand that what you're seeking tonight is just simply the permission to seek further information to then bring it back to us to hope that then we would have the funds available or make the funds available to go forward with this? And you don't know yet the cost, and you don't know yet how much the spread is, but clearly we have a bunch of students here who are saying that this is a problem in our school. We know it's a problem. You hear about it all the time, and this is obviously vape is marketed directly to children by design. So we are fully aware that this exists and that this is a problem, and we want to keep it out of our school. I think it's safe to say we want to keep it out of our school, but I've heard a lot of the research that we've done into vape detectors since that initial thing was that they're often damaged.
They can be.
And so we want to do where we can put, if their efficacy is, if the juice is worth the squeeze, not exactly that. If the efficacy monitors the cost, and then if you do damage ones. And then the next part of it is going to be the invasion of privacy that somebody might claim if there's a camera outside the bathroom and a vape detector in the bathroom and somebody's monitoring the bathroom camera. There's a couple of different ways that could, they have to look into what is effective.
It would be a hallway camera.
A hallway camera. People make cases. That's all.
Still legal to put camera in the back.
Of course, it would be a hallway camera. It would be outside the bathroom. But anyway,
Wait, we would need a camera?
if you have a vape detector go off and then you want to know who did the vaping.
Doesn't
We
it send a
already
signal?
have. We already have cameras in the hallway.
But do they cover the bathroom doors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh? Maybe we already have that. All right. So maybe we're partway there.
That'd be good.
So if someone's
Good to know,
vaping, the notification gets sent to an administrator or new support that there's someone vaping. That's how it's supposed to be.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Another thing I would love to find out from the research is the timeliness of those notifications. That's a big thing that I've heard, and some of the principal groups that I'm a part of, that they come quite a distance after the incident actually occurred, which makes it really hard to utilize the cameras and go back and identify somebody. So that would be another important piece.
And also, ladies, if you have any research for, like I say, other schools in the state that have done the same sort of thing, you can get that through OVX or through VCAT. You can find some information out for us about their efficacy out of their schools, and if they've led to just, like you say, some people that might have been able to get some treatment for their vaping problem. That's positive information to that.
I guess if you're notified if it gets damaged, if you got a notification that it was damaged, somebody walks out and they're on the video, who damaged it. There's a deterrent there in terms of somebody who might damage it.
Right, so it's the monitoring of the equipment.
And it's the quickness of that notification coming.
That would
Two.
be the research, like what types of vape detectors are like
Right,
used
yeah.
in
Yep.
And
Can I ask one more thing?
Dave's gonna ask a question.
So if someone is vaping at exactly noon, and the alert goes out at 2 o'clock, it would still show that the vaping happened at noon.
That's what I would love to find out. That's not my understanding.
Because then you just
Not my understanding that it pinpoints the time enough. So,
yes.
and maybe they've shifted, but I know when we talked about it several years ago, that was a big concern that somebody would vape, you wouldn't get the notification even for 20 more minutes, and you had no idea when to pinpoint it.
But with the camera, what if 100 people went into that? You would have no.
A lot of kids in the hallway.
It's tricky.
So there's some tricky aspects to it, but again, over the years, OPX has been pretty effective in town at putting some things to bed, at putting some smoking spots to bed, and doing some effective work here in Danville and in and around the campus and the school. And so I think that personally, I would support you in your efforts here to get vaping out of this building.
Make the bathrooms feel like a safe place for students.
Our group has attended many town meetings, select board meetings, and we're able to get Joe's Pond Beach substance free, Danville Green substance free, Danville Athletic Fields town field substance free. So there is one more park on our agenda. So yeah, we're still working.
Good. So does the board here feel comfortable with this research being done, and hopefully they can bring us back some information that we can then maybe access? Yes. All right, so we'll call that a consensus. So we think so. We'd love to have some more information from you. We thank you ladies for coming in.
Thank you.
Say ladies for the role. You got that.
No,
These fellas,
that wasn't that.
Go first. Something about it. Okay, we're gonna move down the agenda now. And the next thing on the agenda is the approval of the November 7th minutes. And those November 7th minutes went out on about November the 11th, and they were circulated to everybody. I read through them myself. Molly's had them published as unapproved minutes. You have any questions about those minutes? Any changes to those minutes? We can approve those minutes if I can get a motion to do so.
No. Motion to approve minutes from November 7th.
Motion to approve the minutes from November the 7th.
Full second.
Have a second as well. Is there any discussion on approving those minutes? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes from November 7th, 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, so that's that. Moving on to administrative reports. I'll start with the superintendent. Superintendent report went on Friday. We have Mark's back full time. Mark, anything you want to tell us?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I just want to add something to number 4 on the report on the PCB testing, because I got an email late this afternoon. Our consulting engineer is trying to jumpstart the remediation at Danville by getting DEC to agree to skip one of the steps in the process and go right to a corrective action plan. And there's a prior step in their workflow called evaluation of corrective action alternatives. That, but in the case of Danville, it's pretty straightforward what needs to be done. They need to clean up a couple spaces. And so he's made a proposal to DEC today to skip that step, which turns out to be like a 2-month cycle to draft something and they review it and blah, back and forth and go right to corrective action plan. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this is moving finally here in Danville. We've known almost since day one, well, since the source testing was done, that the sources of the PCBs in this building are fairly isolated and potentially easily remediated. So,
and importantly, not where students go.
Importantly, not where students go. Yeah, we've kept them away. You know, there's some old equipment stored on the stage in the auditorium that they think is the source in that space, but you can't even get rid of that stuff without a corrective action plan that says you can get rid of the stuff, which is the frustrating part of this whole. I don't want to get going on it because it drives me crazy, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to get moving on this in the next couple of months. I was leaning on the engineer a couple of weeks ago saying I'd really like to have Danville and Twinfield resolved before June 30th. So Cabot's another story, and we'll get into that, but that's going to be a long slog. But, so I'm cautiously optimistic that it's going to start moving. And other than that, if anybody has any questions, so it's fresh off the press.
My question here related to S138.
Yeah.
We're compliant here in Danville, correct?
Well, we don't have an all hazards emergency operations plan yet. And we were supposed to have the guidelines to develop those this summer, and they did not get developed. They did not get written, and we're not going to have them until January. So we're not out of compliance, we have an emergency operations plan, but the legislation defined a whole robust set of expectations about what the plan should have in it. I think that we're going to, when we sit down to do it at Danville and the other 6 schools, we're going to find that a lot of it's transferring it into their template because we already know how to do certain things. But there may be some things that we're missing, and I'll stop on my hand. I don't want to speculate, but we'll have a template to fill in. And what we've been waiting for is the delivery of that template. And I just told last week, I followed up again. I said, when are we going to get it? And they said, we're hoping to have it today. But in the meantime, we have a June 30th deadline for having the plans developed. So that's not, that's problematic because they've got to give us some grace on that deadline. They're going to be 8 months late delivering the template. I'll cross that bridge with the secretary when the time comes.
Yeah. Okay, so, and that's at the leadership level for the SU and the triple training.
Yeah. So we're gonna, so we staffed up to do that work. And I'm just waiting for the template to get it done, and it's going to be a busy winter and spring to get those things together. I mean, we'll be shooting for June 24th or for June 30th, 2024, but it's going on.
All right.
Hurry up and wait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any questions for the superintendent past that? Okay. Principal's report. Are there any questions for anybody about, for either a principal about the principal's report? I will say thank you for the communication to the community. Getting these communications with our parents has been really effective. I feel like telling people things is really helpful, and we should really do things as community members and as parents. It makes things a lot easier than
getting responses back. People appreciate it.
Yeah, even if we don't say it there, yeah, you want no response to that. Getting a collated list of all the things that you need to put on your calendar every once in a while is super helpful.
I think the details around the curriculum is really helpful too, because so many of us, if our kids aren't in high school, you're in the dark, and vice versa. You know, things change in elementary as their kids get older. It's like helpful for the community parents.
We wanted to highlight that we're fully staffed, so that's exciting.
Yep.
We are.
Don't jinx us. All right. So did everybody have a chance to read through the principal's report? Does anybody have any questions? All right, there are no questions. I'm going to move down to, I missed student services. So the student services report's in the packet. Do you have any questions about the student service? If there are, we can all email Ann. We all know Ann pretty well these days. So she's pretty responsive as well. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move past student services, past principals, down on the board business. And one of the things we want to clear up here was a discussion that we had last time during the budget discussion. This is a conversation that got followed up immediately with Mark, but I haven't told you guys all the way yet. In the athletic director position, we had some questions about how it was funded, and Mark followed up with Twinfield and has some information for us.
Yeah, so Twinfield is going to kick in on part of Randy's salary to reflect the fact that, you know, he is providing some supervision for the assistant director who's funded by the Cat of Twinfield Consortium. So it took about a 2-minute conversation with the Patrick Hill, and he's like, well, yeah, sure.
Oh, good.
So,
okay, so it wasn't an issue at all.
No,
okay.
No, it wasn't. So,
thank you.
Yep.
So this represents a workaround to the plan to move these up to the SU level in time. And
yep.
And like I said, it's listed here as a stipend because it's going to be a stipend, so they don't have to put it in their budget. It's a one-time thing because next year we'll be on a different budget, and they're going to take that line item and
right.
And you work with finance department on determining what the stipend makes sense.
Yep.
So next year the discussion will happen at that time about moving it to CCSU fully. Is what you're saying?
Those discussions will happen with the new superintendent about the need to move it up to the SU level if it's an SU level position, and then how to work it into all the budgets and hopefully how to make it similar to what we wanted, where people that use the service pay for the service. Okay. But for right now, we have this workaround here to make it more fair for them, which is what Mark was working on. Any questions on that? Past that? All right. We were going to talk about the budget, and we got the December 1st letter. There's not much to talk about because we're still missing a lot of information.
We don't currently have the CLA rate for Danville, and we don't have, I'm going to keep working on long-term weighted average daily membership, which replaces equal SP. So we don't have those numbers yet. And those, we need both of those. The most critical number initially is the long-term weighted ADM. You know, I heard yesterday it should be coming any day, but it didn't come today. And, Mike and Ann were down at a conference at Lake Warren Monday and Tuesday, where they spent a lot of time talking about the way that the weighting study changes are affecting budgets and the switch to long-term weighted ADM, et cetera, and a bunch of other things that we'll hear about next year, next fiscal year relating to budgeting and planning and things like that. So, but since we don't have those numbers, we can't talk about projected tax rates or anything like that. I walking in with Clayton, who drove me to school tonight. I said, you know, should probably look at, you know, if we get those numbers pretty soon, maybe look at a special meeting in December before the holidays, just to talk about that. So that we can get, if there are any concerns with how the numbers shake out, so we can get some guidance on making it go. Until we know what the tax impact is going to be of the spending increases that we went over last time. It'd be just rank speculation at this point. So
I don't think it's simple, that's for sure.
It's
they don't.
It's so much less simple now than it ever was, because how many kids go to this school is now multiplied by a factor of weird and then a factor of another thing. The number is not, it used to be how many kids go to the school, and you would have to explain that one high school kid is worth 1.2 and a preschool kid is worth 0.46. But now it's even more complicated.
There's more factors.
And no kid is worth a kid. Every kid is worth some percentage of a kid. And our number is going to be, we have 300 something kids in here. It's going to be, we're hoping it's going to be 480, but it might be 417. And neither one of those numbers represent at all how many children sit in chairs to learn in this building. They just represent how many dollars we're going to get from the state based on that yield. And then when the yield rate comes out, and the yield rate looks like it is 2/3 of what it was last year, and the governor sends a note that says the legislators got to do something, we can't do this, people go into a tizzy, and they don't have all the information, and all we have is the tizzy. And so we need the information to figure out whether or not we need to talk about, whether or not we need to talk about making changes, and whether or not we need to talk about what we have to do, because we don't know yet what we're presenting to the community with the spending we have.
I would say this much. I think it's an oversimplification to make a statement that everybody's property tax is going up. That's an oversimplification. It doesn't reflect the variations, any variations. Some schools are going to see increases. Some schools that were benefiting from the past with the old weights are losing students. And then our schools in CCSU, we've anticipated from the beginning that all of them would benefit from the changes in the weighting study, and the rurality in some districts, the size of the school is going to be a factor on the poverty level. We've got much better data on bringing reduced lunch this year and poverty levels in our communities. And so we're just waiting to see how all that shakes out in the, I guess it's not calculus, it's algebra, but it's close.
I've been to 2 trainings about it, and both of them just have to make up districts and make up populations, try to give you examples, but what they make up doesn't make sense because it's not real. I mean, they can't, they're having a hard time, VSBA is having a hard time teaching anybody from it, even using education professionals with people who know the words. And then imagine trying to tell people who don't know words, who don't know what the words mean in the order they say. It's going to be we're going to have a really frustrating experience trying to explain to people, because now what everybody knows is what was in the newspaper, which is doom and gloom. And so hopefully we can educate these students.
We have the most equitable systems in the country. That's the silver lining. Vermont's, a lot of other states look to our model for equity purposes, but I feel like in Winooski, that is going to benefit them because they have so many of those second language learners, and they're not getting compensated for the time it takes to teach those students. So I think the time it takes to learn it all hopefully will benefit us in some ways. But
I'm looking forward to fully understanding it before I retire.
It's just old.
It took me 6 years to get my head wrapped around the old funding models.
Long-term weighted average daily membership.
Long-term weighted, yep.
And there's no acronym for it.
There is an acronym. They have an acronym.
But it doesn't.
LTWABM.
LTWABM.
You'll hear that comes rolling off of Mike's tongue right now.
Alex?
I was just going to say, I did have a good long talk with Rep Beck today, and he, as I think everyone knows, just understands this stuff inside and out probably better than anyone in the state. And I just wanted to put out there, he helped me understand it better than I ever could with trainings and any of that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to put that out there because I'm sure he would come in and share some input. And one of the big bottom lines that we sort of came to in our conversation was, we are in Vermont on most average income earners. Like, we don't have a lot of excess money. So the bottom line is, what are we looking at for, per pupil compared to staff? That's some of the bottom line of what we're looking at after we go through, trying to figure out all the weighted stuff. So I just wanted to recommend him because he helped me understand parts of it that I just he pushed for a whole different version. He was not into the weights, which would have been so much simpler. But now we're obviously here with the weights.
We are where we are.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we can also check with Scott. I know Mark has a relationship with Scott.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I know.
that may be necessary, maybe not. Hopefully we can learn it without having to get
Mike's got to handle it. So it'll be our starting point.
So is there anybody else have any questions about the budget for a minute?
Can I ask the board, is it safe for planning purposes? I mean, we're not going to schedule a meeting during the holiday break, but if we can find a date before the holiday break, is that
so
generally speaking, or are people going away?
I think that one of the things that we're going to talk about here in a minute is CCSU collaboration, and we're going to have a meeting on Monday, December the 18th, and so we might be able to squeeze a meeting in before that. But you guys might want to be looking at that one. That might be a time that we should get that one in. That will be in the building here. So that might be, or otherwise in the time before the holidays, we need to have an idea of what we're dealing with. So that is the week, that's the third Monday.
Right.
And if we were looking at, the third Monday, you're gonna give me the face. But I'm surprised you're not on a boat right now. Last time I saw you were on a boat. So,
When's I know you two know, when was the school vacation? I don't know.
Okay.
27.
So that may not, that day may not work. So this group may get a doodle. This group may get a doodle. If we get this information and come talk about it, we have to come to a consensus as a group, as a board, what we're going to do and what we're going to present to the community, but we need the information first. And so you may get a doodle and just be as available as you can when it comes to the doodle.
So you're still having a building committee meeting on the 14th?
I am not able to answer that question at this moment, but I might be able to answer that question in 20 minutes.
So, because if not, maybe we could meet on the 14th.
All right, just keep in mind that you're not the only board competing for December.
Oh, for sure.
I'll juggle that. I do every year.
We can all get together and we can just do one big presentation.
Oh my God! You want to see Mike's head explode?
Yeah, that would be crazy. A bunch of board.
Yeah.
All the world collide.
There was once we stacked 3 in a row, and it was pretty much mayhem.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was in Waterford. We stacked 3 meetings to approve contracts.
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't good. It didn't go super smooth. All right. So any more questions on the budget? No. The next thing I had down was I wasn't sure where we were on date detector requests, but we wanted to discuss any possible action with the kids in the room. So I put that on there, and it looks like we're not going to take any action currently, past just giving the permission to proceed.
Yeah, I'll just throw out there that we haven't gotten the money yet, but we were promised an award from the Jewel settlement, and I got in the Jewel vape settlement that they initially said you'll have it in September. Now they're saying before the end of December. I was searching on my phone, trying to find the amount of money that the SU was getting the work from that, and then that's been supplemented by Altria, which I guess is the company that owns Marlboro, Winston, and those brands. They jumped onto that settlement, and there's a little bit more money coming in. So wanted to use that money for education, and that, got to spread it out across the FU, but might be able to do something.
It might be good to earmark. We have some money that comes in for something along those lines. So that might be a thing to earmark it for, but we'll see what they come back with in terms of data. Okay with everybody?
Yeah, it would seem appropriate if that's where the money's coming from, that it would be used for preventative measures.
You think so? All right, great. The next one's the upcoming CCSU meeting. I've had several conversations with the new board chair of Habits, and then she wanted to loop in the board chair of Twinfield about expanding the collaboration between the schools. And some of this came up with sports, and some of this came up in the last meeting about how we collaborate with sports. But some of this might be about the possibility of opening back up a 706 committee. Then we're going to talk about this at the upcoming CCSU meeting. I talked to Patrick Healy, the chair of Twinfield, about the construction projects, and how we're waiting on the state to come off the construction task force to see what sort of action could be taken, if anything's going to happen, and whether, if anything does happen, it would involve repairing old buildings or building new. And we sort of have to be in a position to go forward if it's building new. And this is something we talked about at the building committee level as well, about looking into the possibility of potentially making a district. Whether we do or not, we have to start the conversations. And so Patrick said, yeah, that'd be great to talk about. Ellen said that would be great to talk about. That's Ellen Karen, Patrick Healy. They said, let's go ahead and talk about it. So it may be some things that are informal, because it may not be all the way to a 706 committee. It just may be something that gets broached and some informal meetings happen in the meantime, before we go into anything, before we have to file all the paperwork. Did you send that around? I don't know if Mark sent that around to everybody, those steps involved in filing it for a 706 committee, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so it may not be something that we go formally into right away, but it just may be something we want to start taking some baby steps on.
706B.
706B committee. So for the members of the building committee, this is one of the things that we're talking about looking into, and it may be one of the things that that maybe something comes to fruition. And in the meantime, we'll talk more about what other programs we can do to collaborate. But we don't have similar contracts with the teachers, so it's going to be difficult to collaborate in some of the spots, and that's always going to vary. So we can get that.
Do you need the 706B to do financial modeling? Say the three of us got together and we just said we want to look at these numbers, we provide the numbers to somebody and give us some information on what it might cost to do this. Would that be, do you have to have the 706B to do that?
Look that way and answer that question. I don't know the answer to that.
What, I think I got your point, but say a little bit more. What modeling?
So say, just to give information to taxpayers, say we were going to give them a building option, a regional option, and a choice option, which came out of that survey, for them to see it all. One thing that came out is they want to see all the numbers compared to one another. Can we get financials for these three if we were to merge? Just get financial modeling done without the 706B.
Yeah, you don't need a 706B committee for me to ask the finance office to take that on as a project.
Okay.
Where I'm clutching a little bit is I don't know how difficult that question is.
Right. Yeah.
And frankly, it's not a question that I want to raise with Mike right now.
Right.
But that could be this is not the time of year to ask Mike to do anything besides, but when we get into the February, March time frame, what I'm thinking of is something that's fairly complex. That's when he starts to breathe again. Yeah. But I can at least have a conversation with him and say that this came up for discussion during the discussion at Danville. What does he think about taking, what would be involved in doing that? The regionalization question, 706B is in the statute. Right? It's a subsection of one of the Title 16, blah, blah, something, 706B. But it was a mechanism that was used during Act 46 for districts to explore voluntary mergers. And Danville, Twinfield, and Canada went through that process in 2016, 17.
It was a delight.
And it took it all the way to votes in the town, and the two voted. Danville and Abbott voted it down. Abbott's, I think it's okay for me to say they're not regretting that decision, but they're seeing the world a little bit differently right now. And I will also say on the record that one of the arguments that was held in Danville was that we have a pristine building, and we know that's not. So I don't know if I don't mean to be harsh or pejorative, but we do not have a pristine building. That was the argument. But we don't need anything. We're fine, and don't saddle Danville with Cabot's renovation costs. So, I don't know, if we'd had a crystal ball or if we had a time machine, if the community would make a difference. I will say that there are things we would have more flexibility in solving challenges that the three schools have if we had a unified district to do that.
But I think for the CCSU, I think about how complex that is too. Kingdom East has their one district, their one SU. It just seems like there's so many more problems that we have just because of how we're structured. I think just having those numbers, if we can get those without, going through the motion of forming the committee, I think would be helpful. And not to, maybe NESDEC, that's one of the questions for them. I don't know how deep they can get into all this information. Mike knows it in and out, but if Mike can't do it, maybe that's something they could do for that financial modeling piece.
Yeah, I think, there are very extensive, I think, and detailed financial models that were created in 2016, 17, and for the 706B committee. There's a framework, the models there. I'm sure Mike hasn't looked at those.
Okay.
But that could potentially be one area that he could take those and say, okay, this data is 6 years old, 7 years old, but let me put current data in. If the models are illustrated in a way that he can just put different numbers into it.
Yeah.
Let me have a conversation with him about it. I know how to pick my days with him right now, and just say, hey, just tuck this away in the back of your head for now, but and he's aware of this. He knows the Cabot's been talking about. What are they going to do? Patrick Healy's always been in favor of combining. Springfield was Springfield and Marshfield were the communities involved.
Yeah, Cabot. I looked recently at the tax rates, and Cabot was the highest. Out of all the ones around here, Cabot was the highest.
Yeah.
I think too. I mean, you brought up Kingdom East, and I think in some aspects it's helpful living in Kingdom East. The ability to pull the money together to fix buildings has not been successful.
How many?
There's also a 7 schools.
How many?
There's 7 schools. All of them are either pre-K or K-8. But they have some very dilapidated buildings out there in Bell, the largest, wealthiest towns. Those towns that don't.
Do you have a sense, Sarah, how much of that is a money question versus how much of that is a community resistance to change question?
Personally, I struggled fixing schools for a lot of money that didn't benefit my own kids at all.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I mean, the last time they did it, I think it was probably 2019, before COVID, but not long before, and it did not. They did a huge push.
And that's helpful. I mean, for lessons learned, if we're talking about this and thinking about doing something different, to see what these other districts did in the state, a lot that did fail, that did work.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad model. I just it didn't work as nicely as I think they would.
Right, having the same problem, but just differently and as one unit. And that they might be the flip side of what happened before, is that we might form a 706 to consider districting up just because it makes sense. But we're not. Three individual buildings instead of 3 individual districts. Maybe we would do 1 district.
Yeah.
So fewer districts.
Fewer districts in the next year. And then you're presenting your face as 1 district. But again, none of this happens until you start talking about it. That would require 706 to even consider.
Yeah, that's a mechanism to form a unified district.
Right, that's
the same set of rules. We have a unified district in CCSU, co-op, and that was done through a voluntary merger. And they started off with the 3 towns, 3 schools, 3 mindsets. And what I've seen over the last 4.5 years is the board now is at the point where they talk about our kids. They don't talk about my kids in Waterford, my kids in Wallow. They talk about our kids and what are we doing for our kids? Are we being equitable with our kids no matter which school they go to? Which is one of the outcomes that you would like to see from the creation of a unified district. And I'm not saying that hasn't happened in Kingdom East. I don't follow what's going on there as much, but this idea that or it gets complicated. People are thinking, well, wait a minute, what am I getting out of this? But one of the problems in Kingdom East is that you have communities that don't want to let go of the small, expensive schools that, you know, with very low enrollment, and that's another thing, you know, and they had to close one of their school buildings because they had a mold problem, and they're still agonizing. And there are people in Gilman that want their old school building renovated so that they can go back to having 40 kids, 50, right? 40 or 50 kids in that
It's been
building.
gone since before I lived there, so.
Yeah.
And the other towns just aren't willing to pay for it.
Well, I mean,
Biggest towns with the wealthiest people got hit hard for the and for schools and others.
It's hard in our area where Danville's considered a big town, and your town is considered a big town, when in reality, right?
well,
It's like, you know, Enfield and Danville are carrying the burden. You know, it's not, we don't have much to shoulder, you know, or to carry the weight, but.
Just a consideration.
it's hard to make an argument to spend, you know, several $100,000 to renovate, or $1 million to renovate a school building that's going to house 40 kids.
Yeah.
It's a different, look how hard it is to do it for 340, right?
That same argument was made in Danville when they said the building was pristine. If we were to merge with this other district and we forced us to do that, we would have to take their kids. We could absorb their high school class for habit. So if you do this, you're forcing us to make a decision for them. Then this was in 2017. That was what Bruce told the state at that time. And you just can't force people to do things like that. And if you district it up, you still have to get it voted. So the talks will be informal, I think, to start, and I think that we'll probably welcome less than a quorum to start with and see where we can get. And then that's really all that we're going to get to. This is the thing that we promised the building committee that we would look into. So we'll start to look into it. And if we can get information that's valuable, we'll do that. And that's the purpose of the meeting. And both of the other board chairs, sir.
So for athletics, how is VPA going to view a combined team?
They view them. I mean, they've always had that model they've had two models for combining teams. They have a cooperative teams, and that's where two schools can form a single team with no restrictions on the number of the players. And that works in the case where you have, I'm going to say, roughly an equal number of kids in each school that want to play a particular sport.
I think it's either 80 or 84 eligible students. So 80 or 84 eligible girls in Danville. I'm sorry, 80 or less would be a Division IV school.
Oh, you're talking about, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about combining. Don't
Yeah,
ask me about
I'm wondering if
levels.
The question will come up, and it'd be nice to have an answer.
You mean we change divisions if we combine that question?
I'm sure we would.
Yeah, that's that. If we were one district, one team.
Right, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably
Division III.
That's probably years down the road. That's the question. A year down the road. That's a fair question to figure out. And this is good. You know, this also is going to give us a way to approach some of the questions that came up in the last session in the public comment of sports participation and how we can, you know, how sports participation goes to the high school level and how we can make sure that everybody's getting an opportunity to participate in sports, and that where we are combining teams to be collaborative, not redistricted, and making sure that the opportunities exist for all players to get times, and so that we're not just combining all the time to make it easier for combining so that everybody gets a chance to play. So I think that we can have a lot of these discussions together that are collaborative in the meantime before we delve into some of the bigger questions, whether or not we need to form a 706. And I'm not sure about the NESDEC yet with CCSU. We'll get to that, Dan. Anybody? Any more on that one? So that's the third Monday. That's the 2 weeks, 2 Mondays from now, 18th. So the 18th we'll have that meeting. It'll be pretty informal, and we'll probably just set up some more informal meetings. We'll probably be open soon for public. All right. Now for the next part, this is about the building committee, and this is specific to NESDEC. And I'm going to turn it over to Molly for a second because she has better memory of this than I do.
So this came out of our last meeting. We talked about possibly hiring NESDEC to give us some data, some reporting, and to look at the financial modeling possibly. So this is just, it's print up, this shows what's on their website, and there was an email from Mark about the costs and what's included. So they are a nonprofit organization. They have members throughout New England. They're all school districts. What we found most helpful that they offer is the long range planning, enrollment projections, which would be our past trends, looking at birth rates too. So, you know, we pulled some charts that looked at the past enrollment trends, but it doesn't include any birth rates or what's really happening in our community now. And then the other part was, we did talk about strategic planning. There's a lot, this is like pie in the sky if we could do everything, you know, long range school facility plan, strategic planning. The annual enrollment projection report is annual, and it's, you know, quote unquote for free with your membership every year. Same thing with the special education report. And then everything else is discounted if you're a member. So Mark, and you can, I just took your information that you gave me. You can feel free to clarify or add, but if you're a member for a year, you get half off the full rate. The full rate is $1,940. So half off of that is $970 for the first year. Year two, it's 25% off, so you'd be at $1,455. And they said you could be a member for a year. You don't have to stay on every year. You're not in a contract for any length of time other than that 1 year. So we've been round and round in our committee, as we all know. I feel strongly about making decisions based on data, and I would find this helpful, and I think the committee agreed that they would find it helpful. I did see that in the past, the state construction aid, they did require enrollment projections. So this would at least, I don't know if it has to be within a certain time frame, but this could set us up for at the point that we're looking at state funding too. If we have the enrollment projections, that would be helpful. So hopefully just to really kind of get the committee going with some data, and instead of Sarah having to say at every single meeting, we're growing out of our space, we can actually show some data that yes, we are growing out of our space. The other thing that would be helpful, Rob mentioned student demographics, and this is where it's a little confusing, where NESDEC provides community level demographics. So they're going to be looking at when all the baby boomers, if they're sadly starting to come out of their large homes and those homes are available, are we going to see more young families move to Danville? Are we going to see our birth rates increase? And so they would take those community level real estate data and come up with a demographic report. That's an option. The one that we were talking about in that meeting, it sounds like the student demographics, which are available on the AOE site, but nobody's compiled all that into readable information. But really, how many adults are in the building? How many students are in the building? I know King of East does have a really nice visual of their school that we have from Truex Collins, but it says for each school room, it says occupancy and then max occupancy. So you can see in each room where you're at. So if you have a kid or a classroom that has 2 one-on-ones, you know that would be in your data there, that's at capacity because you've got 2 adults in that room. You don't have to identify the children, but you could at least kind of show visually where we are seeing that it's overflowing. Mm-hmm. So just, I don't know where that would come from, if that would be a NESDEC. I don't want to put more on the principals. I mean, that may be an architect question too, because they never did dive into the space. They did the report really on the facility needs, but I didn't see any reports on the space at that level.
No, not on the space currently. They did a lot of the spaces on what was the projection on what on the idealized version of it.
So we're kind of back to square one with renovating the building and really seeing, we don't want to just say, yes, we need 2 preschool classrooms and just really build that on not having any hard data.
And so your thought is here that joining NESDEC, signing up for NESDEC for $1,000 for the first year and $970 for the first year.
Yeah.
Get their data.
Yeah.
Ask for their data. Have data. See if their data is valuable, and then take that back to people for planning, people for knowledge, and we'll answer questions.
Yes, I think Mark, we saw the enrollment projection report and the special ed. Those are both included in the long range planning, which for me, I would like to have a master plan that we're going by and making decisions by. I don't know how much that costs, but I think that the long range master plan, just getting a quote on that would be helpful to see how much it costs before we make any decisions on that. And it includes the demographics and the enrollment. So we would become a member, pay that $970, and then get a discount on that long range master plan, ideally. I think the question for the board is, do we want to get a quote on the long range master plan? We don't have that information, and on the strategic planning,
which is above and beyond the 970.
Right.
Buying for the 970.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like those, those subscription services when you say you get the silver level and it has X, and then it has a gold level and it's everything in silver plus, and then they have the platinum level and it's everything in gold and silver plus, and that's how they structure it.
Yeah, and I think as somebody who's been part of pretty much every single building, maybe since we started them, we have to have a direction that moves us forward. And I was talking to the teacher today. We have a section of our building that houses the majority of our elementary that's 90 years old. Yeah. And the fact that it's still a usable building is impressive. But we have to have something that moves us forward. And we can't keep spinning. And I don't know what the best way is. We don't know that anyone can take with us. I think we need something to help us say, this is our expert suggestion for your area.
That's how I'm feeling. Everybody's feeling that way about it. We need somebody. We don't have the answers. None of us do, and we need somebody to give us that direction.
Well, I can go back and I can go, because when I approached NESDEC, it was around enrollment data, and so this is expanded a little bit. Or I can go back and find out. I can get close.
Yeah, I think that would be, if everybody agrees, it would be a helpful number to get. And it would be all inclusive with that demographic and enrollment data. And Katie can weigh in too. Katie's on there. She's on the
also
committee.
Lance as well.
Oh, Lance is there too.
Lance too as well. Board members, anybody else from the board? And I see you, Allison.
Thank you.
Do we know the turnaround time? Do we have a sense of what the turnaround time is?
I don't know.
That kind of
What question?
I'm just curious. Like after 6 months.
I don't know.
Right. I'll go to Lance first and then Allison. Lance, you should be talking permitted.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a similar question. Great data on NESDEC. I was just wondering their timing as well, if this is like kind of canned data that they have, or if they do some sort of analysis. But yeah, it's great meeting so far. I was kind of curious on that.
You know what we could do, Lance? The document that I printed for the board, we could send that to the committee because it shows examples of the reports and a breakdown of what they do for each service. And it might be helpful for the committee to see that. Yeah, we can send that to the committee.
Okay, yeah, so, that would be great.
But I don't know, it might not answer your question all the way, Lance, about whether or not it's canned data or not, whether or not it's data that they are sitting on, or whether it's fresh data that gets.
It would be relevant. I mean, it would be our data, and luckily, Agency on Education has a lot of data on their website. That's Danville's data. They have data for every school on the website through AOE. So I'm guessing they would use a lot of that. And then they say they talk to realtors and planners in the town, and it sounds pretty elaborate from what I read. But that's all in the description too, if you want to take a look and just send some questions if you have them.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad that they take into consideration all of that.
Yeah, it sounds in depth.
Now I'll go to Allison.
And I was just wondering, that was the only meeting I actually missed. I apologize for that. But I talked to many people about the survey results, and I know there was a high percentage of people who had requested looking into, what about the high school being closed and what would that look like and what would the costs be? And I just didn't know if that's also another avenue through all of this talk that really is part of the conversation, because it seems like the community based on the survey wants that.
Yeah.
So is that also going to be able to be explored in this. I don't know what the intention is around that aspect versus what you're saying here.
That would be, so they also offer these like special tailored services. So that's another question for Mark to ask of NESDEC if they could, that's the financial modeling that we're hoping they can offer. So it would be the reports, you know, that long range plan that includes those reports, and then any financial modeling they can do for these options.
Well, that's what I wanted to make sure if that was going to be.
Yeah, that would be.
We already know how to model the cost of closing the high school.
Yeah.
And we've got a working model. We've done it before.
I know that that was done before, and I remember seeing some of that. I know there was a lot of question around who did that and where did the numbers land and why did they look like that. And I'm not saying it was or wasn't legit. I'm just saying I just don't know where that would come from. If this company offers that service or if we go back to a similar path. I just feel like I just hadn't heard it come up.
Yeah.
And I had talked to a lot of people on the building committee and was just wondering, wanting to make sure that that was an avenue being looked at for the community, especially with, you know, expected increases, et cetera. And the room issues, the need for space, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right. Dave and then the Lance. Dave first.
So out of the original building, you would take students there and maybe move them over to this area. If you close the high school, it's the building. I just want to make sure that we're talking in the right term. Would be school choice where students would leave here, but if you close and you move all the elementary kids into this area, you still have to fix everything that needs to be fixed.
Right.
So you're not closing the building, it would be offering choice. I think that's the term that needs to be used.
Getting the words right. And Lance?
Just kind of tailing on to Allison, what we had kind of spoke about in the building committee was getting an outside source that's unbiased to be able to look at this in the similar way I'm sure that Mark and his team did. But I think it would promote, you know, voter confidence that we said, hey, look, we went to this outside group that has the data and it's not no stakeholders, nobody involved in it. And this is what the data looks like. And it may coincide, it may not, who knows, but I think that was kind of the idea with looking at, and in this case, they found NESDEC. And I think that was kind of where we're kind of looking to try to look at that from just an outside standpoint.
Impartial third party.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, yes.
I think that's the question in NESDEC too. I mean, this is a big ask of them, and it's can they do this? You know, if we have 3 options we're giving to the community, if one's a building option, one's school choice, and one's regional, can they do financial modeling to give numbers to the town on tax impact? Similar to what Mike would do, but also to not burden Mike with that, and also for the reasons that Lance shared. Seeing if that's something they can offer was what came up at the committee meeting.
Sure. So my question to Molly is, and so the question I asked you is, did you need to get the whole Megillah, or do you want to start a relationship with these people for the 970 and see what kind of data they give us? Because if they just give us the same data we get from AOE, then we may not know for sure that they.
Well, I know we can't get it from AOE because it involves birth rates. So AOE has all of the enrollment numbers for 10 years, say, even longer actually. They don't include birth rates and they don't do any projections.
These don't exist until they're 3 years.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard to navigate. You got to make your own spreadsheets, and it's there for them to use, but there's no trends. You can't, you know what I mean? You can't really pull the data that you need to make an argument to the community. You can't say
go to the AOE website.
Yeah,
there's a lot of blanks. There's a lot of blanks in a lot of their spreadsheets.
Yeah, eyes will pop out of your head.
Right. So I've got action on this. If you guys want to take action on this, do you want to take action on what aspect of it are you looking to take action on now?
I would like to see if the board can approve Mark getting the quotes from NESDEC. I guess we need official action on that.
No,
not
going to do it.
We can ask them to do it, but I don't think wanted to become a member of NESDEC.
I personally would like us to, but that's just
me. We want to become a member, but if you want to become a member of NESDEC, and then as a member of NESDEC, have the superintendent whose district is a member of NESDEC, and say, this is the information that we're looking for, how much would it cost to get additional information, then have that as, so that you already have access to the data after tonight. And then if there's more things that you think you need, you have an idea of what sort of information they provide and how they provide it, and is it workable?
Right, at least we do get the enrollment report and the special ed report with that 970. Like, do people think that's at least worth it? Say the long range plan is out of the park.
If it's right, if that costs as much as a facility, as a new facilities investment or a new facilities assessment, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I guess that's my
That's
question.
the question.
Would you like to ask the board tonight to become a member of NESDEC at a cost of not to exceed $1,000?
I guess, yeah, I would like to hear what others have to say about that. If they think that it's a worthwhile investment, if we say we don't do anything else except for the membership, would that 970 be worthwhile for the enrollment report and special ed report essentially? Or do you want to take more time to think about it?
I think the 970 is just cover charge. It's like, oh, welcome our new member, but we don't get anything other than another school added to the list here.
This is what you're talking about. We're not on the silver plan yet.
We do get the enrollment projection. Is one thing we get. So basically, an enrollment
we get
projection.
two things. We get enrollment projection and the special ed report.
Yeah. So,
and they normally charge $1,940 in the first year. It's discounted to $970. So you will get that. That's the first tier. That's the silver plan. Okay. Or the bronze or the whatever. That's the lowest level plan. And if you buy into that and then you decide that that's useful data, I think you should step into this.
what do you think? What's your recommendation, Mark?
Let's just step into it. That if you want to, let's test drive the data that the enrollment data and the special ed data, and then if everybody goes like, "Whoa, that's really great," and we get quotes on the other kinds of services. Some of what you're saying you would like to have them do, I'm suspecting is going to be complicated. And when you say complicated, that equals cost.
Yeah.
And you may decide that, well, that would be nice to have, or parts of it would be nice to have, but we don't have to pay for that.
Prioritize, right.
Yeah. And I think you should know before you go too far down a road what you're getting. Yeah. To start off, it'd be worth getting this data.
When we think about Mike's time, $970. If we would have a staff member do, you think about that's there's a lot of time to pull that information.
There's two parts of that. Then you're also pulling away from something else.
Right.
There's two parts to that.
Right.
The flip side of that is if NESDEC says that they have to tie up Mike to get some of this data, then that wouldn't do anything.
If they turn around, right, if they turn around and hang up from us and they call our finance director and say, "Guess what we need from you," because the board says so, then we just added a middleman.
Well, we know they can get the enrollment.
We want them to call. We want them to call AOE. We want them to call somebody else that's not on our.
They can get it.
So my question to you again, Molly, is: do you want to dip your toes in the pool for not to receive $1,000?
I will make a. Can I make a motion without having we act one for action?
One for action on this.
I will move to become a member of NESDEC for the $970 for the first year. I guess that I don't know when that would start. Whenever.
The day we sign the paperwork, you go not to exceed 1,000.
Not to
exceed 1,000. And then we want to become a member of NESDEC, and we need for that to come out of unrestricted funds.
Well, unrestricted funds. So you have to think about that for a second. Could that come from capital, or should we?
No, it comes from unrestricted.
Okay.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just data and state.
Is it a calendar membership?
Is it right? Is it December or is it
a fiscal year?
I think
why don't you tell me
make the motion now
and I'll get the
right.
calendar.
Then
that's what I'm saying.
Right, let me do it again.
So if you're okay with that motion,
it's advantageous to do it now.
I gotta say it more accurate. So I'm gonna say it in a very clear way. I move to approve the middle school becoming a member of NESDEC, not to exceed $1,000 in a membership fee,
which comes from
our unrestricted fund.
Unrestricted fund balance.
I'll second.
Right.
I have a motion on that. I have a second on that.
I know what you're talking.
We all understand what we're talking about here. We're hoping to save this valuable, we're hoping to save people some time, and we need it for the building committee. Any further discussion? Building committee? Hearing none. All in favor of this action, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And then hopefully we get some information and we can see what they have. And then once we have that information, we can see if more information is useful. We'll talk about it again. Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for the time to look into that.
Now, where that's going to bring us to the next item is we're looking at building committee planning. And that is a lot of it. That would be agenda building for the December 14th meeting. And I'm not sure we have any. I need to discuss with the board and the committee members whether we have anything or whether we want to meet. To tell people that we don't have anything, if we want to just have that emailed out that this is a step we've taken. This is a step we've taken at the board level to join the NASDAQ. And then we have also the discussion on the 14th about collaboration. And so we're following through with the action plan that we got on the meeting from September. About October. Late November. Yeah. And so do you think that's enough, or do you want to go ahead and meet on the next upcoming date? And if you do you want to start working on an agenda? On my phone.
The 14th. I think you could email them an update. I don't think that we need to discuss anything if we don't have any information. If we have reports to give them from this back. I think at the point that we have those reports, then we would do right.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think you're going to have reports this month.
No.
Right. Yeah. No.
I wouldn't count on that.
Yeah.
No, but you could certainly tell them that.
So
those wheels are starting to turn.
One of the reasons that we 2 meetings ago planned out 3 meetings in advance was so that with the idea that we would if we didn't have anything to meet about, we wouldn't meet, so we weren't wasting people's time. So and we're looking for this information now. We have a pathway to get some of this information. And so if I send out an email with who NASDAQ is, and then what our plan is, and then how we're following through with some of the survey stuff with looking into collaboration with Cabot. So we're doing the actions at the board level that the committee is asking for. I don't think we need to meet.
Yeah.
Does that seem to be what everybody else thinks? Allison?
I was just curious because I wasn't there, what the sort of final consensus was. Was this the walkaway, essentially, that there wasn't going to be committee action to try to help do some discovery around this? It was going to be sort of the steps that you're summarizing. Was there any other need from what you guys saw at that meeting to have more conversation of options, or was it pretty clear these are our 3 things we're exploring at this time?
Not exactly. We needed more data.
Yeah.
We needed more information, and we had a lot of information from the community that we wanted to figure out what our action plan was next. And so we were just sort of now what the survey has asked us, or what the committee has asked us, is to gather information. And so now we're in an information gathering stage, which happens here as opposed to there.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if that was the story, that was the plan, here versus there.
Here versus there, because we can take the action here.
Yeah.
We could take them there, but it wouldn't be, they're not board meetings to vote on. Like
yeah,
that.
No, exactly. And I was also curious that you felt, I mean, I went through the survey results personally, but did you feel that all of these avenues sort of covered the bases that came up within the survey that people felt were worthy? That seemed like it happened. I just wasn't there to know.
Yeah, there was consensus with the committee that the community needs more financial information.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they don't stand alone. We kind of asked the side questions that kept percolating and coming up about the regional and school choice kept coming up, and it was a kind of a side question, not thinking it would be the focus, but then the responses really brought it to light that the community wants to see them all together to be able to compare.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Perfect. That helps. Thank you.
And to Lance?
Yeah, I agree, Clayton. I think it would be counterproductive to meet without any further data. I think we would just kind of go around in circles a little bit, and we don't want to call you folks out in for another meeting that's we wouldn't have anything really relevant to speak about. So I think it's great to kind of wait for this data.
Okay, good. Thank you for that, because I just want to make sure that we have something that it's not about calling us out, it's about calling the rest of the community out as well, the people that are putting their time in as well. So this is everybody respecting everybody else's time. I think it's really what this is about. Trying to do what the community wants, but the committee is about the building and trying to get this information for them. That's going to happen here. So I'll send out an email in the next couple of days here with that information, and I think we'll plan on not meeting.
January 11th.
And then we'll plan on having the next meeting. There's a meeting sitting there on January the 11th already for the building committee, and we may not have anything then. But I don't know. We'll see. But we're working toward the committee's goals. So that's where we are on that. All right, we're good there. That's what I have for board business. Up next, before I get to future agenda items, is public input.
Okay.
You're good with committee stuff, Lance, Katie, public input.
I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, good. Katie, she's not there. She's pretending to go up. No, she's pretending.
I don't know.
All right, great. Okay, moving on from public input, I'll move to future agenda items and next meeting date. Next meeting date's going to be up in the air. Next meeting date's going to be when specifically
we can talk about tax.
We can talk about tax impact. There's really all that's important right now is the budget and what we can do to make sure that we keep our flexible pathways to graduation and keep educating these kids here in this building in a proper way. And people bring us cookies.
Yeah.
A lot of times people bring us cookies now. This is the new thing.
They propose using the building committee day for our next meeting. I mean, I know we have to have the data. But
what is that date again?
For us?
The 18th?
The
14th. 14th is a Thursday. I don't know who has what on a Thursday.
It was already on all our campus.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. I think that may be right. I'll have it in there somewhere.
Everybody but Mark. So December.
Well, I mean, yeah, let me.
This is gonna if you get a doodle and there's 9 things and you can go to 3 of them, but then 2 of them have dinner, you have to skip the dinner. You just say yes to everything, and then just come to these budgets.
That makes my life easier if everybody says yes.
So everybody just says yes. So we don't know yet when, but head on a swivel for when for the budget stuff. And then future agenda items, just the budget, right? On budget right now.
And fake detectors, we're just waiting on.
We need information from OBX and from KAT. VCAT. All right. That's all I have. Anybody else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Take it from Tim.
Second.
Second from Melissa. All in favor of adjourning at 7:31, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.